I want to tell you about a man named Harold Jameson. He's 94 years old, and he lives alone in a small town in Oregon. He wakes up with the sun, tends to his garden, reads poetry, and somehow carries more peace in his presence than most people half his age. I met Harold by chance at a local library one quiet afternoon. He was sitting by the window with a cup of tea and a book in his lap, and when I sat down beside him, I had no idea how much he would end up teaching me about life, about aging, and about what really matters. Harold once said to me, "Most people live like they've got all the time in the world, and then act surprised when it's gone." That line stayed with me, not because it was clever, but because I could feel the truth of it in my bones. So I started asking questions. What made Harold different? How did he make it to 94 with such clarity, such grace, and such a light spirit? Over time, I discovered that it wasn't just what Harold did that kept him healthy. It was what he avoided. There are 6 specific habits he refused to carry with him through the years. And today, I want to share those with you. Because whether you're 65 or 85, it's never too late to change the way you live. Let Harold's story be your reminder. A long life is built one peaceful choice at a time. 1. Holding on to bitterness. The first thing Harold ever told me when I asked him about aging well was this: don't carry what doesn't belong to your peace. At the time, I didn't quite understand what he meant, but a few conversations later, he told me the full story. When Harold was in his early 30s, he and his younger brother had a falling out. It started over something small, an argument about land, inheritance, and a few sharp words spoken in anger. But what began as a moment of pride turned into 30 years of silence. No birthdays, no holidays, just distance, and over time, pain that hardened into bitterness. He told me, "I spent decades being right, or at least thinking I was. I told myself he owed me the apology, that I had done nothing wrong. But all that time, I wasn't winning. I was just growing older with a heavy heart." The truth is, bitterness doesn't just live in your memories, it lives in your body. Harold said he could feel it in his sleep, in the tightness in his chest, in the way his smile became harder to find. And science backs that up. Chronic resentment and anger have been linked to higher blood pressure, inflammation, and even heart disease. But Harold didn't need a doctor to tell him that. He was already living it. Then one morning, when he was 67 years old, something changed. He looked in the mirror and saw a man he barely recognized, tired, heavy with things unsaid. That day, he sat under the plum tree in his backyard and wrote a letter, not to send, but to release. The letter was to his brother, who had passed away 2 years earlier. Harold read it aloud to the wind. He cried, he forgave, and for the first time in decades, he exhaled without regret. He said, "Forgiveness isn't about fixing the past. The past is already done. It's about healing what's still broken inside you." That conversation stayed with me, because the truth is, we all carry something. Something someone said. Something someone never said. A disappointment, a betrayal, an apology we're still waiting for. But Harold's story reminded me that peace is not about waiting for others to make it right. It's about choosing to stop carrying what's been hurting you. So, I'll leave you with Harold's question, the one that changed his life. Do I want to carry this into the next season of my life? Not, was I right? Not, do they deserve forgiveness? Just this, is it worth my peace? If the answer is no, maybe today is the day you lay it down. Not for them, for you. 2. Withdrawing from others. One of the first things I noticed about Harold was how he never tried to be the center of attention. But he also never disappeared. He showed up, quietly, consistently. Whether it was poetry club at the community center or Sunday morning coffee at the corner diner, Harold was there. Not because he needed the company, but because he understood something many people forget as they grow older. We don't just need connection. We are connection. Harold once told me, "We're not meant to age in silence. We're meant to be witnessed." That word, witnessed, it stayed with me. Because as I listened to him talk about his life, I realized how many older adults slowly begin to pull away from others. Not because they want to, but because they think they're being a burden, or they feel forgotten, or they believe no one sees them anymore. Harold admitted he almost fell into that trap. After his wife passed away, he stopped answering calls. He skipped the church potlucks. He even started having his groceries delivered, just so he wouldn't have to speak to anyone. Grief, he said, made me believe that the world had moved on without me. For almost a full year, he isolated himself in that little house, convincing himself he was just resting. But what he was really doing was disappearing. And then one day, something unexpected happened. A boy from the neighborhood knocked on his door to ask if Harold's tree had any apples to spare. It was a small moment, but something about that simple act of being asked for something woke him up. "It reminded me that I still had something to give," he said. That moment pulled him back toward the world, slowly at first. A wave on the sidewalk, a chat with the cashier. Eventually, he started attending Thursday poetry readings again. He didn't always speak, but he listened. He showed up. And over time, people noticed. "I didn't need a crowd," Harold told me. "I just needed to feel like someone would notice if I didn't show up." Loneliness, especially in retirement, is a quiet epidemic. Research shows it can be just as harmful to your health as smoking. It weakens the immune system, increases the risk of dementia, and shortens life expectancy. But Harold's life taught me that the cure doesn't always require deep conversation. Sometimes it just means being there, sharing space, letting someone see you. If you found yourself slowly pulling away, convincing yourself that you're just tired or that people don't really care if you're around, pause. That might not be your truth talking. That might be your loneliness speaking in disguise. Ask yourself, when was the last time I let someone witness me? Not for advice, not for help, but just as I am. And then, even if it feels uncomfortable, reach out. Wave at the neighbor. Visit that familiar cafe. Call the friend you haven't spoken to in months. Harold says connection isn't about having many people. It's about believing you still matter to someone. And trust me, you do. 3. Neglecting movement. Harold moves slowly now. His steps are deliberate, his balance a little shakier than it once was. But what's remarkable isn't how he moves. It's that he still chooses to move every single day. I asked him once if he ever gets tired of walking the same path in his garden or doing the same stretches each morning by the window. He smiled and said, "It's not about the distance. It's about the rhythm. As long as I'm moving, I'm alive." That stuck with me. Because for many people, especially in their later years, movement starts to feel unnecessary or even like a risk. The knees ache, the energy dips, the motivation fades. So they stop. A day without a walk becomes a week. A week turns into a month. And slowly, the body starts to forget how to carry itself. Harold nearly stopped once. It was after a small fall in his early 80s. Nothing broken, but it shook him. "Fear got into my legs," he told me. "I wasn't just afraid of falling again. I was afraid of being seen as weak." So for a while, he stayed inside, sitting more than moving. And that's when he started feeling older than his age. He said his back stiffened, his sleep got worse, and his mood dipped in a way he hadn't felt before. Then, one morning, he looked out at the plum tree in his backyard. the same one he planted with his wife decades earlier, and he felt this quiet pull, not to exercise, not to work out, just to be with it. So he stepped outside, just a few feet, then a few more. I wasn't trying to train my body, he said. I was trying to remember how to feel part of the world again. Since that day, Harold moves with intention. He walks to the mailbox, waters his plants by hand, does gentle stretches with old jazz music playing in the background. Nothing fancy, nothing extreme, just movement. Consistent, meaningful, mindful movement. And here's what science now confirms. Regular, low-impact movement in older adults reduces the risk of chronic illness, boosts memory, improves mood, and even increases longevity. But Harold didn't need research to tell him that. His body told him, his mind told him, his spirit told him. He says, "The more I move, the less I feel stuck, not just in my joints, but in my thinking. Movement doesn't just keep you flexible. It keeps you hopeful." I think about that often, especially on the days I feel too tired to get up and go. Because movement isn't about doing more. It's about staying in rhythm with life. And life, at any age, still wants to dance with you. So if you've been sitting a lot lately, maybe today's not about running a mile or joining a gym. Maybe it's just about standing up, rolling your shoulders, and taking 3 slow, steady steps. That's how Harold started again. Not with a goal, but with a quiet choice to keep showing up in his own body. And that choice, it's still available to you, right now. 4. Eating without intention. Harold eats the same breakfast every morning. A small bowl of steel-cut oats with cinnamon, a few blueberries, 1 boiled egg, and black coffee. No sugar. It's not exciting. It's not trendy. But the way he eats, that's what's remarkable. He sits by the same kitchen window, no television on, no phone nearby, just him, his food, and the morning light. He once told me, "I used to eat to fill time. Now I eat to honor the time I've been given." That line made me stop and think, because most of us, myself included, treat food like fuel or distraction. We eat fast. We eat while scrolling. We eat things we don't even taste. And for a long time, Harold did too. He shared that after his retirement, he started slipping into a pattern. Microwavable meals, frozen dinners, late-night snacks with no real hunger behind them. Food became background noise, he said. I stopped tasting it. I stopped thinking about what it was doing to me. And over the years, it showed. He gained weight. His joints ached more. His energy dropped. But what scared him most was how numb he felt even while doing something so essential, so human. Then one day while shopping, he picked up a bright red apple. It reminded him of the apples his father used to slice for him as a boy. He said, "That memory hit me so hard I almost cried, right there in the store." That apple became the start of something new. He began eating with attention. He started cooking again. Simple meals, nothing fancy. Soup from scratch, roasted vegetables, a slice of toast with honey. He said, "The food didn't heal me. The care did. The effort, the mindfulness, the gratitude." And the science backs him up. Intentional eating, eating slowly, without distractions, and with appreciation, has been shown to improve digestion, regulate blood sugar, support brain health, and even reduce anxiety. But beyond all that, it reconnects us to ourselves. It turns eating into a form of self-respect, not just survival. Harold calls it eating like you matter. And I love that, because how often do we treat our bodies like something to push through the day with, rather than something to care for like a trusted friend? So if you've fallen into patterns of convenience, of emotional eating, of rushing through your meals, pause. Choose one meal this week. Just one. Sit down, turn off the TV, taste every bite, thank your food. Not out loud, not to anyone else, just to yourself. That's how Harold began again, not with a diet, but with a deeper sense of respect for the life still moving through him. He told me once, "At my age, every meal feels like a conversation with time, and I try to make it a kind one." Maybe that's where health begins, not in the food, but in the way we welcome it in. 5. Obsessing over the past. Harold once told me, "The past is a place to visit, not a place to live." At first, I didn't fully understand what he meant, but as he shared more about his life, the meaning became clear. Harold lived through hardship, real, aching hardship. He lost his first child just days after birth. His first marriage ended in quiet heartbreak. He made mistakes in business that cost him friendships and sleep. "There were years," he said, "when I thought my best moments were already behind me, and I kept trying to rewind the tape in my head, looking for ways I could have done things differently." He went on to describe how, for a long time, he spent his mornings not waking up to the day ahead, but waking up to old memories. Some were beautiful, others were painful. But all of them had one thing in common. They kept him locked in yesterday. "I thought I was honoring the past by holding on to it," he told me, "but I was actually turning it into a prison." What changed? A journal, that's all. Just a blank notebook someone gave him on his 75th birthday. At first, he didn't write anything serious, just grocery lists and quotes he liked. But one evening, he wrote down a simple sentence: "I forgive the version of me that didn't know better." That was the start. He began writing a few lines each night, not about what went wrong, but about what he had learned, what he still wanted to experience, what he still loved. The more he did this, the more his relationship with the past softened. "I didn't forget the hard things," he said. "I just stopped giving them all the power." He reminded me that living in the past, whether it's with guilt, grief, or nostalgia, can steal the beauty of the present. And the longer we dwell in it, the more we start missing the small miracles unfolding right in front of us. There's a difference, he said, between remembering and reliving. "Memories should be like photo albums," he smiled. "You take them off the shelf sometimes, flip through them, maybe cry or laugh a little, and then you close the book and return to your life." That image has never left me, because I've seen so many people, young and old, get stuck in loops of what should have been, what they lost, or what they didn't become. But Harold? He taught me that aging well means gathering wisdom, not regret. If you find yourself constantly replaying old pain or wondering how life could have been different, try this. Write to yourself, just a few sentences a day, not to rewrite your past, but to reclaim your present. Speak kindly to the version of you that was simply trying to survive. Harold once told me, "My future got a lot brighter the day I stopped arguing with my past." And maybe, just maybe, your next chapter starts when you do the same. 6. Believing you're too old to change. If there's one thing Harold feels most strongly about, it's this. The idea that we stop growing just because we grow older is one of the most damaging beliefs we can hold. He looked me straight in the eye once and said, "The moment you say, 'I'm too old,' you've already started shrinking." Harold didn't always believe that. In his early 70s, he found himself slipping into that same mindset, thinking life had mostly settled, that there were no new chapters ahead. He stopped trying new things, stopped asking new questions. He said, "I was alive, but I wasn't becoming anything anymore. I thought that part of me had expired." But then something unexpected shook him out of it. His granddaughter gave him a harmonica for Christmas. At first, he laughed it off, called it a sweet, silly gift. But later that night, when the house was quiet, he picked it up, just to see, just to play. It sounded awful, he told me with a grin, But for the first time in years, I was a beginner again, and it felt amazing. That one moment changed everything. He started waking up curious again, not just about the harmonica, but about his capacity to learn, to adapt, to surprise himself. At 89, he started painting. At 91, he joined a local book club. At 93, he began learning basic Spanish, just enough to chat with the new neighbors down the street. "It's not about mastering anything," Harold said. "It's about staying open, about refusing to believe that the best parts of you are behind you." And the truth is, neuroscience agrees. The human brain remains capable of growth, new connections, new patterns, well into our 90s. But the key is belief. If we believe we're too old, we stop trying, we stop moving, we stop becoming. And when we stop becoming, we slowly start disappearing. Harold reminded me that aging is not about decline. It's about evolution. And evolution doesn't stop because of a number. It stops because of a mindset. So if there's a part of you that's been whispering, "It's too late," to change your habits, to learn something new, to forgive, to love, to create, I want you to imagine Harold, 94 years old, sitting on his porch, playing a little harmonica tune under the fading sun. Not because he's trying to be young again, but because he's still honoring the part of himself that's alive. He told me, "You're never too old to become more of who you were always meant to be." And maybe, just maybe, that version of you is still waiting patiently for you to believe it's possible. Before we end this video, I want to step away from Harold's story for a moment and speak to you, not as a narrator or a voice behind a screen, but as someone who's walking this road of life, just like you. Maybe a little behind you in years, but learning every day what it means to live with intention. Spending time with Harold taught me many things, but the lesson that changed me most is this: we still have more life to live, no matter our age, no matter our regrets, no matter how tired or uncertain we may feel. You might be sitting in your favorite chair right now, wondering if your best days are behind you. You might feel invisible sometimes or forgotten. You might be carrying quiet grief or questions no one ever answered. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still thinking, still listening. And that means something. That means there's still something ahead for you. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be public, but it can be real. Maybe it's a new habit. Maybe it's reconnecting with someone you lost touch with. Maybe it's just starting your day with music instead of silence, or journaling for 5 minutes in the morning, or walking to the mailbox and smiling at the neighbor, or forgiving yourself for things you did not know at the time. I believe with all my heart that small steps change everything. Not all at once, but gently, steadily, quietly. That's how peace enters. That's how joy returns. That's how life opens up again. And if there's one thing I can offer you, not as an expert, but just as someone who cares, it's this: please don't count yourself out. You are still needed. Your story still matters. There is someone out there who needs your wisdom, your kindness, your presence. Even if you don't see it yet, it's not too late. It's not over. You haven't missed your moment. The version of you that's lighter, freer, more at peace, that version isn't in the past. That version is still possible. And it's waiting for your permission to begin. So take one breath, one step, one choice, and keep going.